Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulihil ameen. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Wa man tabi'ahum biridwanin wa da'a bida'watihim ila yawmiddin. If we reflect on our world today, you will recognize that the whole world and all the systems that run the world are based on denial of God. Not disbelief in God, but denial of God. For even today, if you take a survey of the population, and there are numerous surveys of this kind published regularly by polling organizations, majority of the people in the world, including Western European countries, would answer that they believe in God. But the systems that run the world are all based on denial of that God. And as a result of that denial, we live in an extremely materialistic world. And I think that is the greatest challenge that the children of Adam has ever faced on the face of this earth. And it is this unbridled materialism that is the reason for so many problems, so many ailments of the society. Especially here where we live, we always hear the word American dream and the pursuit of American dream. It's nothing more than a culture of materialism, of indulgence, of selfishness, and it gives rise to an extreme level of individualism based on the market philosophy and the financial philosophy that runs the world, which is in denial of God. And a natural consequence of that materialism is this selfishness. The material consequence of this materialism is that we stop caring about others. So Quran refers to people in the past, especially the people of Shu'aib alayhi salam. وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ أَنْفِقُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ قَالَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لِلَّذِينَ آمَنُوا أَنُطْعِمُ مَنْ لَوْ يَشَاءُ اللَّهُ أَطْعَمَهُ. That when they are asked to spend from what Allah has given them, then the people who deny God say to the believers, are we to feed those whom if Allah had desired, He would have fed them? That they are responsible for the condition in which they find themselves. And as a result, everyone is left to find out for himself how to gain sustenance and support for life in this world. And it results in the breakdown of family systems, breakdown on welfare systems, and everything else that goes around us as a result of this extreme materialism, pursuit of pleasure, pursuit of entertainment that we constantly seek around us. And we all carry these small devices in our pockets, which certainly have certain benefits that it provides us in terms of organizing our lives, in terms of being able to communicate with each other. But they are also designed to control you in the way that it makes, it sells materialism to you. And that materialism is that draws your attention, draws your focus towards it. Not as a result of some conspiracy by number of people sitting in a particular room, but it's a natural consequence of the nature of these devices. And so we constantly need something to take our focus and attention away from anything else. And when it is not on, when our eyes are not looking at it, when it is not open in our hands, then we feel a sense of withdrawal, and we feel a sense of boredom, and we need devices to take care of that boredom. And so that is all is a result of this materialism that surrounds us today. And these are selling devices primarily for those who market them. These are primarily money-making selling devices, and designed to determine how they can sell you as best as possible. Constant advertisements, constant ads, constant promotions, constantly trying to draw your attention and focus into something that they can sell to you. And sometimes I think that maybe, as Prophet ﷺ said once, that the worst places of your city are its markets. And not in the sense that Prophet was against any financial activity, but the fact that markets by nature are designed to make you indulgent, to make you selfish, to make you seeking this world constantly. And that is what these devices do. And as a result of this materialism, another consequence of this is that we lose certainty, and we have doubts that constantly go in our minds. And we find ourselves in a society in which we find so little that we can put a surety that we can believe it, whether it is the news, whether it is what we read, whether it is what is promoted to us. Is it really the reality? Is it really what it is? Because it's all designed to make it good for you and make it attractive to you. And so when one follows his own desires, it also leads to what is known as doubts. And once I read a beautiful dua in one of the books, when a scholar writes that he said, "Nastaghfiruka min sawqi shahawati ila suqi shubuhat," that we seek Allah's protection and forgiveness, that our desires will drive us to the market of uncertainty and doubt. And that is what we find ourselves surrounded by. And that is what we feel we are living in. The greatest hallmark of the end of the world that Prophet ﷺ described, regardless of how you understand those traditions that deal with Dajjal, with the end of the world. But obviously, they are not literal, but they convey a sense to us what kind of world we will find ourselves in when we arrive towards the end of the world. And so there, Prophet ﷺ, all these signs that he describes there are related to the materialism of the world, that how human beings will tend to rely on material interpretation of the world for everything they find themselves surrounded by. And so this is the greatest scourge, the greatest calamity that the children of Adam face in the world today. And it gives rise to so many other issues and problems in us. This material pursuit of better life, this material pursuit of luxury, this material pursuit of forgetting yourself in entertainments, in streams, in whatever is being broadcast to us, and all of that is designed to take our focus away from Allah, to take our focus away from real belief in Allah. And so you can see how the godlessness that we see surrounded by, where people have no sense of accountability before a greater power in the world, is a result of this materialism that we find ourselves surrounded by. So how do we deal with this world? Where do we take a refuge from this world in where we find ourselves unable to withdraw from it, unable to disconnect from it, unable to go someplace where that is not the case? The whole world has been taken care of, taken over by this. So today I want to discuss some of that solution to this problem of materialism that we find ourselves surrounded by, as given in Surah Al-Kahf. As you know, one of the qualities of Surah Al-Kahf that Prophet ﷺ described is that it will save you from the fitna of Dajjal. And to me, the fitna of Dajjal is nothing more the fitna of materialism that we find ourselves surrounded by. And so the Prophet ﷺ placed before us the Surah Al-Kahf, that if you recite this, then it will guide you to something where you will be able to take care of it. And it's a long surah, and every verse and every story that is contained in that surah is a lesson for it. And maybe in the future sometime we can go over each one of them. But today I want to focus on just one story. And that is the story of people of cave, Ashabul Kahf, about whom Quran says that they were so overwhelmed by the culture and the society in which they found themselves that they found their own faith to be endangered by it. And Quran itself makes a description of it where they say, إِنَّهُمْ إِن يَظْهَرُوا عَلَيْكُمْ يَرْجُمُوكُمْ أَوْ يُعِيدُوكُمْ فِي مِلَّتِهِمْ وَلَن تُفْلِحُوا إِذًا أَبَدًا. That if they are able to overcome you, take control of you, then they are either going to remove you, kill you, or they will make you return to their ways and assimilate you into their culture. And in that case, you will not find any refuge from it. And so one of the solutions that Quran describes as a result of that, what they felt they should do, is they said, فَأُوا إِلَى الْكَهْفِ يَنْشُرْ لَكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ مِنْ رَحْمَتِهِ وَيُهَيِّئِ لَكُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِكُمْ مِرْفَقًا. That let's turn to a cave. Maybe Allah will open some direction for us, give us with His mercy, show us a way how to deal with this society in which we find ourselves. They didn't go to cave to escape everything and live there forever. They went there to take a time out, and a time out in which they wanted to reflect on their own life. They wanted to reflect on the society they find themselves in, and to ask Allah to show them a way on how to deal with the society in which they found themselves. And so I think that provides for us a very particular model on how we should deal with this materialistic culture and materialistic society that we find ourselves surrounded by. We all know that Islam does not encourage for you to withdraw from the world in a way that you have nothing to do with the world. You have to live in the world. You have to indulge yourself in the world. You have to force yourself into it and live within the society, within the humanity in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created you. In Islam, there is no rahabaniya. Rahabaniya is where you leave pleasures of this world and everything that this world offers and withdraw yourself from it. But what Islam requires from us is that we live in this world, but live connected with Allah and not connected with this world, while we do not withdraw from this world. One of the best descriptions of the companions of Prophet ﷺ, as is sometimes said about them, is that يُحَرِّكُونَ الدُّنْيَا وَلَا يُحَرِّكُهُمُ الدُّنْيَا, that they were able to move the world, but the world did not move them. And so this is the attitude that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala teaches us with respect to what our attitude should be with respect to this world. But one of the solutions that I find when I recite this surah and when I read the story of Ashab al-Kahf is that it is important to take time out. It is important to withdraw for short spans of time and to review and reflect on your life as a result of that withdrawal, as a result of that taking time out. And so that is what is that is what the solution is that Quran teaches us in terms of all the prayers that it teaches us. The 5 times a day you come to prayer and you say the first takbir, Allahu Akbar, and with that first takbir, for the duration of that prayer, you are supposed to disconnect with your surrounding, with everything that surrounds you, your house, your people, your everything that draws your eyes and attention. You must not even look at anything around you. You must close your ears from listening to anything, any voice that may be coming to you, and you completely focus on it. And if you extrapolate and increase it, you will also find that we find, especially in the month of Ramadan, Prophet ﷺ used to love to do i'tikaf. I'tikaf is where there are certain rules under which you withdraw from the world, you lock yourself up in the masjid, you don't indulge in any worldly conversation, you free yourself of all worldly concerns, and then you devote yourself to the zikr, to remembering Allah, to reciting His book, to standing before Him and asking Him for prayers. So I think while we are not permitted to withdraw from the world and go into some cave, we are given means through which we can create a virtual cave around us, a cave that is not permanent, but a cave that is periodical and temporary. And I think that is what we find a very effective solution that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us in terms of dealing with the world that we find ourselves surrounded by. And especially in our times, in this materialistic world that constantly draws our attention. I mean, everything that you see around us, from billboards to your phone, to your TV, to computer, everything is designed they measure their success based on what they call eyeballs, how many eyes are focused on them, and how many eyes they can keep focused for how long. And you can see what you are fighting against in this whole world. And so it is important to create virtual cave around us. And especially when we are going through these times today where there's a lockdown in many places in the world, and in many places in this country. This provides us a natural opportunity to create that condition of cave, that kahf, in which we can spend time to pray, to remember Allah, to make His dhikr. And His dhikr is the primary thing. Dhikr is to keep Allah in your remembrance. And that is the greatest of the ibadah. And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, sometimes describes in Quran, if you read Quran, that you pray, why? Aqim as-salata li-dhikri, so that you can remember me, so that you can do my zikr. If you go to Hajj, why? So that fazkurullah, so that you can remember Allah and spend time in connecting with Him. If you are even going to jihad in the world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَإِنْ خِفْتُمْ فَرِجَالًا وَرُكْبَانًا فَإِذَا أَمِنْتُمْ فَاذْكُرُوا اللَّهَ. That even that, the purpose is to remember Allah, to make His dhikr. Even for the Prophet Musa alayhi salam and Prophet Harun alayhi salam, when they were given a mission to go to Pharaoh, to invite him, to convey the message to him. And that was a mission in which they faced a great deal of opposition and a great deal of persecution. And when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them that mission, they also prayed. And Musa alayhi salam asked for help. And asked for help in these words when he said, كَيْ نُسَبِّحَكَ كَثِيرًا وَنَذْكُرَكَ كَثِيرًا, so that we can glorify you as much as, and we can remember you as much as. So zikr is the enabler that enables us to deal with the world that we find ourselves surrounded by. And only when our eyes are covered, when our focus is taken away from the dhikr, that's when we lose ourselves. And when we lose ourselves, then we are constantly connected to these screens and these devices and these advertisements and these programs and everything that we find ourselves surrounded by, that we use to comfort ourselves, we call it entertainment, we call it being able to spend time without anxiety, without worrying. And if you are not connected with it, we feel an emptiness inside us. We feel a void that needs to be fulfilled. Our children are growing up in that kind of environment. Our children are growing up if they are not somehow connected with some kind of toy or entertainment or a device, something is not in your hands or some big screen is not playing something, then they don't know what to do. They feel a void, they are bored. And so we are unable to fill that void with anything else, either in our lives or in the lives of the others. And so it is important to take time out from all of that. Take time out and understand the world in which you find yourself. Take time out and then focus on remembering Allah, renewing your relationship with Allah, and only by renewing our relationship with Allah will we be able to deal with this materialistic world that we find ourselves surrounded by. And that requires a great deal of control over your own self, which is very difficult. We have lost ability to control our nafs, to control ourselves and not let it go into whatever comes in front of it. We are also affected greatly by all the temptations that this world places before us. And if you look at the story of the creation of Adam alayhi salam and the creation of shaitan, what was the greatest tool that shaitan had and that he promised that he will use on the progeny of Adam in this world until the end of the world? And that is that he will try to turn their attention away, that they will bring temptations before them through which they will lose themselves. And so I think this, as we approach this month of Ramadan in this fortunate time, I say it fortunate because I don't think this kind of opportunity, this level of being able to control our own time, I don't think we can recall any time, at least in our lives who are alive today and reach the age that we have, that we can find an example of that in our lives. And so I think this is an opportunity. This is a great opportunity that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided to us. And in this opportunity, we should be able to cure our hearts and cure our minds and recreate that connection with our Creator Allah through the zikr, through salah, through everything that continues and persists. That you will find yourself throughout your life as you spend to be withdrawn, to be taken, your focus of distracted by it. And so to deal with that distraction, you need to constantly come back. The one of the greatest characteristics that Allah describes of the true believers, those who will be entered into paradise, is that they are Abdul Munib. They are constantly returning and turning, that they carry qalbi munib, that they have hearts that are constantly turning back. And so that returning to requires for us to be able to disconnect ourselves from the world in which we find ourselves and to take a time out from the world in which we find ourselves. And I think the story of the people of Kahf provides for us one of the examples of how to deal with a society that is out to get you, to assimilate you in whatever world it is designing for you, and to remember Allah, to remember your connection with Him. So I think we need to create that cave around us. Creating that cave and disconnection does not mean a passive way of withdrawing from everything, but it's an active process. An active process where you take, first thing you need to do is you take chaos out of your life. Chaos is when you spend time and take every hour and every minute as it comes. And then you decide what you are going to do this hour and this minute. That is chaos. That is where you are driven by your situations and circumstances and whatever that moment is providing you with, rather than creating a discipline in your life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us the 5 daily prayers. And when He gave us 5 daily prayers, He said, Inna salata kanat ala al-mu'minina kitabam mawquta. That He established that prayer. So if you want to remember Allah, it could be without any time restrictions. And it is without time restriction as a general trying to remember Allah and remembering His dua. But the formal prayer Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala organized, that it doesn't become due until you enter its time. And if you don't offer it within its time, you lose it. And so in that sense, Inna salata kanat al-mu'minina kitabam mawquta conveys to us a discipline that we must implement in our lives. A discipline by which we must run our lives. And so we must, if we want to create this virtual cave, that virtual cave inside it, we must be disciplined. We must be disciplined as to how we spend our time. We must have a schedule as to what we will do tomorrow morning, what we will do tomorrow afternoon, what will we do tomorrow night. So that discipline is absolutely important. The second thing we must focus on, and this also requires a lot of energy, it requires a lot of effort, and that is to purify our thoughts. And zikr, all zikr and recitation of Quran is designed for that purpose, to purify our thoughts, to make them pristine, to make them uh, sound, make them really confident on Allah, confident on His powers, confident in whatever He takes us through is something that you are happy with, constantly trying to please Allah. And so that is also something we should focus on. So building discipline, organizing your time, and purifying your thoughts, and remembering Allah, spending time in the zikr, are the three things that we should do to help us make this virtual cave that has been created around us to deal with the ailments of the society and the ailments of the world that we find ourselves surrounded by. So أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. So any questions or comments, I'm open to.
Thank you very much, Dr. Murad. If, like he said, if you have any questions, you can submit them through the Q&A at the bottom of your screen or through the chat box on the side. We have one here. What is the difference between Tarawih prayers, Al-Qiyam prayer, Tahajjud prayer, if they are not the same prayers but different terms and different times, and at what time in the night should they be offered?
I mean, these are all Sunnah prayers, Nafil prayers. So they are common in the sense that they are all Nafil prayers, and Nafil meaning they are extra, extra from the obligatory prayers that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has enjoined on us. And so there is throughout Quran there is a great emphasis on prayers at night, and in fact that prayer at night were the very first prayers that were enjoined on Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, where it was revealed in Mecca in the very early time. Qumil layla illa qalila, that stand in prayer before Allah and don't sleep except for very little. And Quran describes that praying at night alone is one of the greatest ways in which a person can develop self-control, person can develop his character, person can become a better person. And the greatest duty and responsibility was given to the Prophet ﷺ. So on him, the nightly prayers were made almost obligatory. And so he didn't have choice but to offer those prayers. So all night prayers are nafil prayers, sunnah. You can call them sunnah because Prophet ﷺ always offered them. Tarawih is just part of that night prayer. And so as much as you pray is good. And sometimes for those who are busy in work, who are working and do not have the capacity to wake up in the middle of the night, I think to provide an easy way for them to stand in prayers, Prophet ﷺ started praying in the early part of the night. Now the time for night prayer starts from after the Isha prayer up until the Fajr prayer, or up until it's time for Fajr prayer. So that's the whole night is the night where you can offer those nafil prayers any time. But the hadith also say the best time is the last third of the night. So if you take the night from the time sun sets to the time the sun rises, and dawn happens, then if you divide it into three parts, the last third part will be the most optimal time to wake up and pray these prayers. So Tarawih prayer can be a substitute for Tahajjud prayer, or they can be something additional, Or you may, if you are at home and you have no Taraweeh going on, you can decide to wake up later on in the night and spend some time praying rakahs at night. So I think all of those things are possible. Taraweeh is sunnah, just as tahajjud is sunnah, and they are all equivalent to each other.
Okay, thank you. We have this next one here. During this pandemic crisis and incoming Ramadan 2020, will there be no group iftar, no Taraweeh prayers, no Friday prayers, and no daily congregational prayers? Also, will there be no Eid prayer? For how long will these religious cancellations continue?
See, this is not a decision that uh, we can make as a religious people. It has to be made by the civic authorities that design what are the consequences of coming together. So these are extraordinary circumstances, and what will happen 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 8 weeks from now is unknown. We do not really truly know as to what the conditions will be like later on. But what is scientifically proven is that if those society communities that don't take care of it, the death rate is very high in those communities. I mean, you may call it's only 1 or 2%, but 2% people dying. I mean, even one life is too much. Is too much. And so in that sense, the greater, when you weigh the benefits and what you are missing out, the nothing takes precedence over another person's life. And so if another person's life is endangered, then everything can be given up. And so in that situation, in that circumstance, we have to continue this. And we have to take it as we face new circumstances. The Eid is still more than 5 weeks away, and we don't know what it will be like, whether in a controlled manner we will be able to offer Eid prayer or not. And again, Eid prayer itself is not obligatory. It's a sunnah prayer. So we'll have to deal with it as we get there. Unfortunately, at this point in the communities in which we find ourselves, I don't think that's the case in all over the world, but most places in the world, you won't be able to hold communal iftars. You won't be able to visit each other. You won't be able to have a social gatherings, and so that is how it is for the time being. And when will that be relieved? We have no idea. I mean, this is a extraordinary circumstances.
Thank you. This next one is kind of similar. For how long should one practice social distancing of intimacy with his or her spouse? These Trump guides are getting too far into our beliefs, privacy, and into our bedrooms. Are we religiously obliged to follow them?
You are religiously obliged to only follow that which is you consider, I mean, in your private life, what you consider would be harmful for you. And there are guidelines in this regard that are given by medical professionals and everyone else, especially living in one home inside within one room. I don't think a complete social isolation is what is being prescribed. I mean, you have spent your life together all this time, and you constantly meet with each other, and whatever happens is going to be, unless one of you spends time outside, unless one of you has a higher risk than the other person. In those cases, obviously, you should follow the guidelines.
Thank you. This next one says, Jazakallah for the virtual khutbah. When somebody attends a virtual khutbah, does one pray 2 rak'ahs as Friday prayers or 4 rak'ahs Zohar prayers?
It is called virtual khutbah, but it is not a replacement of the actual khutbah of Friday. It's not a replacement of Friday prayers. And so even under normal circumstances, if you miss Friday prayer, then you are supposed to offer 4 rakats of Zohar prayers. For example, if you arrived in the masjid and Imam said Assalamu alaikum and he's done with the prayers, for some reason you arrived late, then you will offer Zohar prayer. So same principles apply today where we find ourselves, in the conditions we find ourselves. I mean, you cannot make 2 rakah prayer unless you are in a masjid and a formal Juma is being organized. So outside of a formal Juma, it's all Zohar prayer. I mean, in the past, even there's discussion where there are certain fuqaha who say that the community must be of a certain size to establish Juma. And so in those communities that are too small for them to establish Jummah prayer, even under normal circumstances, those fuqaha prescribe Zuhr prayer for even under normal circumstances. Uh, so uh, so there is a difference of opinion. Some people say there must be at least 3 persons, 4 persons, 5 persons minimum, or there should be a bigger group. And there's a lot of discussion in the fiqh about that. But unless a formal Juma is being established, you will offer Zohar prayer, 4 rakas.
Okay, next question says, I'm afraid of my wife. She is very authoritative.
In internal home circumstances, what the situation and circumstances are obviously requires someone who is trained to deal with those social situations and circumstances. And so you need to consult those people who are in a position to help you regarding the domestic situations in your home. But the Islamic principle is that you be considerate to each other, and that you listen to each other, and that's all a general advice that can be given to anyone.
Okay, thank you. Next one, thank you for this khutbah. This is a time when many are feeling anxious, trying to juggle a lot with work, home, and our children. What is the best spiritual support we can offer our children in this time of great disorientation for them as well?
I think one of the main things is to engage with them and to spend time with them. I mean, I was just reading some article somewhere in some news organization where they were describing people who are unable to deal with their children when their children are constantly around them. I mean, this this problem of society where we uh, put our children in the hands of the institutions and societies and unable to deal with them ourselves personally, I think is a great emotional disconnect, which has I mean, which causes issues and problems in the society in terms of a proper growth of a person in the society. So I think you need to learn to engage with them, or constantly engage, constantly learn what is on their minds, constantly read to them good moral stories, try to organize their time properly, identify skills that you can give to them and ask them to work on those skills and try to develop those skills in them, learn new things. So all of those things can be done with children, but you need to exert yourself. You need to take time to engage with them, and not just think about babysitting activities. I mean, babysitting should not be the objective. The objective is that Allah has given you this opportunity where you have a direct influence on your children, where your children are learning most from the outside. They spend 7-8 hours in the school, then they spend in their own rooms, then they go out with their friends. So there's very little that we deal with our children in the normal society. And I think this provides us a correction to it, and we should look at it opportunity as a correction mechanism that is being applied. And obviously there will be some discomfort in the beginning because we are not used to it. But I think we need to think, we need to work, we need to organize, and we need to make the best of this time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. When it is gone, these opportunities will not be there again. So I don't look at this time as all negative. I think there are many things, many ways in which the society will never give us this opportunity, has given us this opportunity, and so we should use it wisely.
Thank you. This next question says, I think I know the answer to this question, but want to confirm. Does it mention in the Quran how many rakat are in each prayer time? If it does, please advise verse and chapter.
The prayer, the method of prayer, how many rakats you pray in each prayer is from the Sunnah of Prophet ﷺ, because these are the details that Quran does not deal with. Quran deals with conceptual frameworks. Quran deals with very overall principles, foundational principles, and it does not deal with these details of how to make wudu, how to stand in prayers, what to recite, what the form and structure of your prayer should be. That is conveyed to us through the practice of Prophet ﷺ. So the practice of Prophet ﷺ is important. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Quran, it could have been dropped to us without messenger being there, and we would have the Quran. But he revealed the Quran to a messenger over a period of 23 years. And Quran instructed Prophet ﷺ to explain it to people and to implement and practice it before people, and to show them how to practice what Quran has revealed. And so the answer to that is that the structure of the prayers, of the formal prayers, is in the fiqh and in the teachings of the Prophet ﷺ, in his practice and the practice of the companions.
Okay, thank you. This next question is, some people are arranging Jama prayers at their homes. Is this okay? Or can the Jama prayer only be offered in the masjid? And then I think this next part also goes with this question. In this situation,
if it's only your family and you think there's enough members of your family, you have big family, if you want to offer a Juma prayer, I think some permission can be obtained for it, although one of the conditions of Juma is that it should be announced, it should be organized out in a place where announcement is made and other people are able to come and attend. But under unusual, extraordinary circumstances, I think if there are enough people in a home, then that can be done. But if the instructions in your community is not to socialize, not to visit each other, then you should not invite others to your home.
Okay, this next question says, I prefer to pray alone as opposed to in Jama with my family at home. I am a father of 2 girls, as I feel more khushu in this way in offering my salah. Is there something wrong with this, or is this a wrong approach? Please also provide some advice on how to obtain more khushu in Jama prayer, especially when leading it.
Okay, so it's perfectly all right to offer, if you're not in a masjid, to offer your prayer individually. There is no absolute requirement that you must organize a Jama prayer at home, and so it's possible, and there's nothing wrong with that. So that can be done. But obviously, there are ahadith that say prayer together is carries, for at least for the obligatory part of the prayer, not the individual, not the sunnah part, not the nafil part. If more people join in, it's better, and it also brings a discipline into those prayers. So in those cases, I think that will be a good thing. But if you feel you want to pray individually, then there is no obligation that you must pray in Jama at home. So that's the answer for that question. The acquiring khushu is a big topic, and khushu is not something that you can attain by just some magical words, through some magical process. Khushu requires you to constantly develop that focus in which you are able to focus on your prayers. Khushu is about focus. But there's also another definition of khushu, which I like, which is given by some scholars, which is khasha is a is a description of the outer state of the person. And the outer state of the person is where he is humble, where he develops a demeanor in which he conveys a humility before Allah, and he acquires a circumstances around him, a condition around him in which that humility is displayed. And so I think in that sense, the way you stand for prayers, the way you recite Quran, not quickly but slowly, and reflect on what you are reciting. And whenever your attention is drawn away, you try to bring your attention back to what you are praying, are some of the ways in which if you keep exercising, you will develop that ability. This is true about anything else in their life. I mean, if you haven't done any exercise for a very long time and you stand up to do some exercise, even little bit is going to be tough on you. But as you improve yourself in it, slowly you will keep improving in that direction. And about khushu, I mean, in my life experiences, there is no limit to it, that you have achieved a khushu. I mean, even the person who you think maybe have a greatest khushu, he's looking ahead of him, and he thinks there's an infinity outside there. And so the level of khushu is something that you should always be dissatisfied from. I mean, I don't think you will ever achieve and arrive at a place where you can say that I have khushu. And so it is something that is a struggle that's going to constantly continue. And so the process of trying to achieve that khushu is itself khushu. And so I think that is what we should focus on, and those tools are given to us. In prayer, we are supposed to not look at any place. We are supposed to turn our focus and attention away. That itself tells you that prayer is designed for you to achieve that khushu when you stand before Allah. That when you say the first takbir, takbiratul ihram, you are supposed to disconnect from the world. But we are also fighting shaitan, who brings thoughts in our minds, who makes us worried about everything in the life as soon as we start the prayers. And the only solution to that is a constant fight. A constant fight is whenever you come to a realization, you turn away and you correct yourself. And that exercise, the more you do it, the better you will become at it. And so I don't think there is any particular magical formula that can be given through which you can achieve a particular khushu. And as I said, no matter what stage of khushu you are in, you may be better than you were in the past. But obviously, when you look ahead, you think, no, your khushu is not sufficient, not enough. And so that feeling should persist. That feeling should never go away.
Okay, thank you. We have a lot of questions coming, but our time is almost up here. So let's answer one more and then we'll have to wrap up, inshallah. Is it okay to pray Jama while the Imam is on Zoom? He is praying live on Zoom and we can follow at home.
No, I don't think that's considered right by absolute majority of scholars. And so you cannot just play a tape recorder or a screen or a TV and start praying and consider that to be fulfillment of your obligation to pray.
Okay, inshallah, let's wrap up now. Thank you very much, Dr. Murad, and thank you everybody for joining us. I'm sorry if we weren't able to get to your question, but you can find all the future scheduled webinars on www.soundvision.com/webinars, and maybe we can get to it at a future webinar, inshallah. We would like to request that you keep supporting Sound Vision with your generous donations at soundvision.com. And I'd like to acknowledge and thank WIT, an IT solutions company with offices in Michigan, Ohio, and Toronto for their generous donations. Thank you again for joining, everybody. See you next time. Assalamu alaikum.
سبحانك اللهم بحمدك اللهم اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وكفر عنا سيئاتنا وتوفنا مع الأبرار برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.